He realized his luck expired as the collapsing building violently crushed his body. Reflecting on his miserable existence, he simply wished for a normal life if reincarnated. A sudden loud cry echoed continuously as an attendant joyfully announced the boy's birth. The smiling silver-haired mother tenderly held her newborn baby, affectionately naming him Siebert. The startled newborn infant widened his eyes in absolute shock, suddenly realizing he reincarnated. Kneeling on a blank white floor, his confused soul slowly realized he had died. A cheerfully smiling man suddenly appeared, smoothly introducing himself as the Keeper of Life. The sympathetic keeper carefully noted that the guest's earthly existence involved endless disastrous events. The nervous guest quickly apologized as the keeper recounted how a falling pole crushed him. Calling him special, the enthusiastic keeper quickly promised a new reincarnated world containing great benefits. The panicked guest questioned the keeper, who guaranteed him past memories and universal language. Winking playfully, the keeper dramatically revealed the most spectacular eye-catching benefit called appraisal eyes. Still deeply confused by the overwhelming supernatural information, the bewildered guest slowly repeated it. Finding this explanation highly suspicious, the guest hesitated while the confident keeper urged him. The overly cheerful keeper enthusiastically presented an extremely suspicious lottery machine to choose worlds. Reluctantly accepting his bizarre fate, the weary guest sighed and spun the lottery machine. To everyone's absolute shock, a brilliantly glowing golden lottery ball smoothly dropped down. The stunned guest questioned his victory as the keeper happily confirmed this exceptional prize. A mysterious dark portal suddenly materialized beneath the guest's feet as the meeting concluded. Screaming in utter panic, the flailing guest plummeted into the void while the keeper waved. Back in the luxurious bedroom, the affectionate parents lovingly watched little Siebert reaching out. The gentle mother happily cooed at the infant, asking if he finally recognized her. Staring intently upward, the reincarnated baby firmly confirmed he could clearly see his mother. The protective mother gently scolded Father Gilbert, reminding him that the baby's neck lacked strength. Extremely frustrated by his helpless body, he desperately wished to thoroughly understand this unknown world. Carefully observing the highly ornate clothing around him, he logically concluded he inhabited another world. He suddenly recalled the cheerful keeper explicitly mentioning magic and various benefits during their encounter. Excitedly remembering his newly acquired appraisal eyes, he realized he could evaluate anything visible. Extremely eager to test this unique power immediately, he enthusiastically decided to appraise his surroundings. Unable to speak incantations, he intensely concentrated to silently activate the skill without instructions. A massive glowing status screen suddenly materialized before him, thoroughly displaying his complex magical stats. The detailed interface identified him as Siegbert von Abel, showcasing his advanced magic attributes. Carefully reviewing the floating numbers, Siegbert noticed his luck value was merely 200. Seeing pathetic tens across his basic abilities, he angrily complained about lacking overpowered aptitudes. His quiet statistical analysis was suddenly interrupted when the heavy bedroom door violently swung open. Two eager young girls enthusiastically entered the room, excitedly calling out for Ariane and Theobald. A strict maid immediately shushed the excited girls, sternly reminding them that everyone needed quiet. The flustered girls quickly apologized for their loud noise, explaining they simply wanted to meet. Smiling warmly from her bed, the gentle mother easily forgave their excitement and invited them. The amazed girls happily marveled at his beautiful silver hair, predicting their brother would dote. Terrified by the giant reaching hands, the baby desperately prayed she would not be rough. The young girl gently grasped his tiny hand while gazing at him with adoring eyes. While the maid demanded quiet, the jealous sister protested her sneaky brother holding his hand. The cheerful older sister enthusiastically promised she would carefully look after him and play together. Completely ignoring his gender, the sister excitedly declared her intention to dress him like dolls. Observing their cheerful personalities, the nervous baby watched the lively siblings debate dressing him up. Sweating profusely under their intense attention, the helpless baby nervously worried about them playing roughly. Apologizing for her loud excitement, the sister softly patted him while their mother promised trips. Smiling with absolute pure affection, his older sister happily thanked the adorable baby for existing. Gazing upward with extremely large sparkling eyes, the completely overwhelmed infant quietly absorbed their pure genuine familial affection. The gentle mother smiled warmly, expressing immense joy that her children already got along perfectly. Remembering his extremely unlucky past, the reincarnated infant found his incredibly warm new family unbelievable. Surrounded by absolute love, the grateful baby felt truly blessed being born into this family. Hearing his parents discuss scheduling tomorrow's initial appraisal with Willie, the confused infant silently questioned. The distressed mother firmly refused trusting regular appraisers following a mysterious past incident involving Gerd. Hearing these entirely unfamiliar names, the puzzled baby listened as his father confirmed Willie's safety. The excited siblings cheerfully anticipated Uncle Willibald visiting despite him currently working inside faraway palaces. The father proudly explained that the great knight uncle constantly traveled abroad completing dangerous missions. Looking incredibly worried, the young brother hesitantly asked if Sieg truly needed the mandatory appraisal. Leaning against her highly supportive husband, the anxious mother terrifiedly feared another tragic Gerd incident. Noticing the previously cheerful atmosphere suddenly becoming extremely tense, the confused baby sweated in absolute silence. The serious father gently revealed that Gerd was his older brother currently attending magical school. He thoroughly explained that this crucial newborn appraisal verified elemental aptitudes determining future magical training. The brother angrily recalled 5-year-old Geld being forcibly enrolled and desperately worried Sieg possessed magic. Crying bitterly, the devastated mother remembered her sobbing son leaving because advanced magicians rarely returned. Staring with fierce determination, the angry father blamed the careless appraiser for publicly revealing attributes. Deeply regretting his past failure, the protective father firmly swore he would successfully defend Siegbert. The absolutely terrified baby realized his possessed advanced magical aptitude meant inevitable forced academy enrollment. Staring at his glowing magical status screen, the panicked infant desperately tried deleting dangerous elements. He terrifyingly concluded that revealing multiple advanced attributes would inevitably result in horrifying magical experimentation. Trapped alone in his dark crib, the desperate baby frantically remembered the keeper mentioning benefits. A bizarre shadowy creature featuring one giant eye suddenly materialized overhead, respectfully answering his desperate master call. Screaming in absolute terror, the startled baby listened as the weird floating eye introduced itself. The knowledgeable system patiently explained that it existed specifically to clarify incredibly detailed appraisal information. Offering an immediate perfect solution, the incredibly helpful system strongly recommended learning the powerful concealment skill. Finding this extremely convenient, the eager infant quickly asked how to utilize this hiding ability. His high hopes shattered instantly when the system unfortunately confirmed he had not acquired it. Feeling utterly defeated, the gloomy baby mentally prepared for death since learning concealment proved impossible. The floating entity suddenly revealed salvation by mentioning the mysterious reincarnation blessing points he possessed. The absolutely amazed baby learned those specific points could instantly purchase the highest grade concealment. The helper warns that learning abilities requires great effort and points, but the baby eagerly accepts. Knowing spending all his points feels extremely wasteful, he groans in frustration about his upcoming difficult choice. He angrily decides he simply does not care because his only priority remains reassuring his loving family. The helpful system explicitly confirms understanding the master's command while the scene peacefully transitions into night. A grand estate suddenly appears as enthusiastic voices loudly shout a very warm welcome to the arrival. The famous returning knight happily smiles while cheerfully telling all the gathered servants that he is home. The humble knight laughingly dismisses his massive popularity while excited maids eagerly scream for the red scion. Walking into the decorated bedroom, the surprised knight receives a serious greeting from his long unseen brother. Teasing his jealous brother, Willibald warmly notes that the gorgeous wife remains just as incredibly beautiful today. The nervous infant watches quietly as his gently smiling mother expresses immense joy regarding the knight's return. The confident knight cheerfully declares that ignoring the true star of the day would be incredibly rude. Gently holding the tiny infant, the smiling knight asks if little Siegbert feels nervous meeting Uncle Willibald. While Willibald admires the boy's inherited cuteness, the sweating infant realizes his dreaded appraisal has finally arrived. The parents happily discuss his rare maternal features while anticipating dressing him up in his sister's clothes. Praying his concealment works, the anxious baby listens as Willibald promises a painless scan utilizing appraisal eyes. Glowing magical elements and intense energy spectacularly surround the focused knight as he activates his appraisal ability. Staring intently at the child, the incredibly powerful knight suddenly reveals an expression of absolute complete shock. The terrified and profusely sweating baby desperately wonders if his highly expensive magical concealment plan actually failed. While his parents ask about rare elements, the baby silently begs for peace as Willibald lists aptitudes. The scanning knight finally confirms the baby entirely lacks any dangerous advanced magical elemental attributes whatsoever today. Hearing this incredibly wonderful news, the deeply relieved father breathes a massive sigh of absolute pure peace. The thrilled infant cheers happily inside his mind after realizing his brilliant concealment plan worked out perfectly. He proudly reviews his heavily modified magical status screen displaying only 5 unhidden basic elemental attributes successfully. The amazed uncle reveals the baby successfully inherited powerful abnormal status resistance skills directly from his mother. Holding his wife affectionately, the immensely grateful father happily anticipates his resilient son experiencing a normal childhood. The baby fondly considers these specific unhidden resistance skills as an incredibly precious maternal family inheritance gift. Reviewing his perfectly modified magical statistics, the deeply relieved boy feels completely ready for normal mundane living. The peaceful atmosphere violently shatters when the appraising knight suddenly gasps again in absolute profound utter shock. Deeply concerned by this sudden reaction, the anxious father quickly asks his stunned brother what actually happened. Sweating heavily, the visibly shaken knight hesitantly suggests the child might actually be the legendary Lucky One. The utterly stunned parents instantly repeat that legendary fairy tale title in absolute disbelief and immense confusion. Feeling incredibly anxious once again, the confused baby desperately wonders what this completely bizarre situation actually means. The amazed uncle explains that magical appraisal reveals fortune as massive wings rarely seen outside legendary myths. The serious knight terrifyingly warns that the magic ministry will absolutely never ignore such unbelievably massive fortune. The horrified baby completely panics after realizing his current situation vastly exceeds his absolute worst imaginable nightmares. Uncle observes Sieg's magic power, noting it surpasses his own at birth. The astonished uncle boldly declares that this incredible power goes beyond prodigy level. Stunned Siegbert thinks this is impossible because he only experienced bad luck previously. He desperately wonders about the meaning since his luck stat cannot be 200. The uncle explains the Lucky One is a mysterious being loved by gods. The nervous father realizes the magic ministry will undoubtedly use Sieg as an experiment. The devastated father holds his head in despair, muttering there is no way. Panicking Siegbert wonders what will happen, regretting giving his family terrible new memories. Sitting quietly nearby, his mother speaks up with a calm and gentle voice. She smiles, stating that becoming a mother to such an amazing kid brings happiness. The amazed uncle wholeheartedly agrees that little Sieg is an extraordinary and amazing kid. Stealing her resolve, the loving mother looks down with a fiercely protective facial expression. With tears falling, the mother begs her husband and his brother to protect Sieg. The father intensely stares at his brother Gil, silently communicating a serious shared resolve. Meeting his wife's loving gaze, the determined father prepares to make a protective decision. The innocent baby stares up with wide eyes while cradled safely in protective arms. Gil suggests they simply announce the magic element to bypass the appraisal eyes problem. The father realizes the initial appraisal is just nobles showing off their heir's prestige. Gil assures him some nobles hide magic power, so nobody will know Sieg's luck. Gil states nobody will doubt the announcement if the nation's trusted top knight speaks. Gil plans to claim Sieg shares his own elements to stop the ministry advancing. Holding the baby, Gil smiles as the father expresses deep relief about the atmosphere. The father agrees and decides they must keep Sieg's abilities secret between them three. An unknown voice interrupts the conversation, casually correcting the shocked father to say 5. The adults turn around as Gil asks the eavesdropping girls since when they arrived. The father calls out, looking visibly surprised at his daughter standing by the door. Gil lightly scolds the girls, noting that prying into adult conversations is undeniably bad. Ariane takes full blame, while Theovolt defends her sister by admitting it was her idea. The mother gently reassures the frightened girls, stating she isn't angry about their worries. Theovolt explains she wanted to hide his status because magic school teachers expect a prodigy. The mother thanks them, confidently assuring them that their father and Willie will protect Sieg. Overwhelmed by family love, baby Siegbert sheds tears of happiness, feeling truly speechless inside. Uncle Gil strictly orders the girls to absolutely never talk to anyone about this. Flashing an intimidating glare, Gil forces the two terrified girls to confirm they understood. The deeply startled sisters immediately stutter out a nervous agreement to their uncle's demand. Watching the interaction, Siegbert nervously sweats, realizing his mighty uncle might be a scary person. Dropping his scary face, Gil smiles and proudly tells his brother he has good kids. The father smiles softly while warmly embracing his daughters, feeling deeply relieved and proud. Months pass, and thanks to his uncle's plan, the dreaded magic ministry never took Sieg. Looking at his mansion a few months later, Siegbert seriously questions if he is lucky. Siegbert angrily realizes that his horrific previous life was actually caused by a massive system error. The magical helper reveals someone maliciously overwrote his luck stat to an abnormally low negative value. He guesses the celestial guides forced his reincarnation just to secretly cover up their embarrassing mistake. Furious at being tricked into thanking them, the boy curses the deceptive keeper for his lies. The stunned baby wonders if his hidden lucky status from birth is still connected to him. He stares blankly at the dark floating entity while contemplating the bizarre truth of his existence. The helper cheerfully chimes in with a lively confirmation that startles the highly anxious little boy. Recovering from the initial shock, the boy angrily accuses the magical helper of possessing an ego. Sitting calmly among towering stacks of literature, he explains the presence of elementary magic learning books. Being surrounded by heavy magical texts makes him feel peaceful whenever the confused maids step away. The intelligent baby plans to silently learn magic by utilizing his overpowered language mastery skill quietly. Admitting his past bookworm tendencies, the thrilled infant eagerly embraces this rare chance to study magic. After several months of studying, he happily discovers he possesses all 12 magical elements without restriction. Finding the correct passage, he learns that clear visualization is the most important factor for casting. The textbook explains that a clearly visualized image guarantees a much stronger and more accurate spell. This crucial visualization rule explains why the exact same spell can manifest uniquely for every practitioner. Filled with newfound confidence, the eager boy prepares to attempt his highly anticipated beginner-like magic. Letting the warm magical energy flow, he visualizes a dark road beautifully illuminated by glowing fireflies. A dazzling array of light bursts forth, proving his advanced knowledge creates incredibly accurate magical spells. His wide eyes sparkle with intense joy as he excitedly vows to remember countless powerful spells. Pushing his limits further, he decides to vividly imagine a massive theater light bulb shining incredibly brightly. A catastrophic beam of blinding light violently erupts from the mansion windows and into the night. Panicking over the massive magical explosion, the sweating baby realizes he must hide his immense power. The father abruptly swings the door open while suspiciously questioning the source of the blinding flash. Staring at his tiny son in the room, the stunned father gasps in absolute trembling shock. Meanwhile, the resting mother peacefully stays in her bed and reassures the anxious maid of her health. Gazing sadly at a small framed picture, the concerned mother softly whispers her missing child's name. The frantic father violently kicks the door open and screams that little Siegbert is miraculously standing. The mother claps in amazement while a flustered maid angrily scolds the Marquis for his rudeness. The terrified baby sweats profusely while initially thinking he was caught practicing his highly secret spells. He quickly realizes his father is merely shocked by his absurdly premature ability to stand upright. Despite the baby's internal protests about his physical limits, the excited father demands he walk forward. Seeing his beautiful mother waiting with open arms, the determined boy decides he cannot disappoint her. The wobbly infant slowly steps across the thick carpet while his nervous parents watch in awe. Sweating from the immense physical effort, the baby successfully completes his first miraculous steps across the room. The exhausted infant reaches the bed and gratefully grabs onto his cheering mother for physical support. The ecstatic father violently scoops up his son while the baby silently screams for his fragile neck. Oblivious to his son's physical terror, the proud father loudly praises the boy for walking fast. A sinister butler suddenly appears in the doorway and calls the terrified father's name very sternly. The sweating father cowers in fear as the angry butler demands to know why he abandoned his duties. A stern voice interrupts the joyous family moment and firmly orders the excited father to his office. Sweating nervously under the intense glare, the frightened man stammers his understanding while agreeing to return immediately. He promises to return later while his smiling wife thanks him for bringing little Sieg to her. An angry maid sharply reprimands the father for leaving the mansion repeatedly to buy precious tea leaves. Lia gently asks her maid Anna to bring some books from Sieg's room for the good boy. Exhausted from secretly using his magic earlier, the tired baby gladly accepts his mother's offer to rest. Resting comfortably inside the grand estate, the loving mother happily notes that Sieg approaches his first birthday. Gently patting her son's head, the beaming mother expresses profound joy over seeing him walk toward her. Gazing up at her melancholic face, the perceptive infant realizes his mother seems unusually different and serious. She earnestly urges Sieg to live freely without noble shackles and remain kind despite facing future absurdities. Tears stream down her face as she promises to always be his ally and wishes him happiness. Embracing her precious baby tightly, the weeping mother begs him to always remember the days they shared. The confused infant stares upward in shock while trying to comprehend his mother's deeply sorrowful emotional breakdown. Without warning, the mother suddenly collapses onto the bed while the terrified maid screams out her name. Heavy magical books crash violently onto the floor as complete panic and chaos erupt within the bedroom. The desperate maid leans over the unconscious woman on the bed and tearfully begs her to stay strong. Wide-eyed with absolute terror, the helpless baby watches the horrific scene unfold before his tiny shocked face. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit library far away, a mysterious figure sits silently working at a desk. A shadowed messenger urgently interrupts the busy boy named Gelt to deliver an emergency letter from his father. The shocked young boy turns around with wide eyes upon hearing the devastating news of his mother's death. Family members in dark cloaks gather silently in the pouring rain around a grand funeral monument. Shielded by a heavy cloak, the innocent baby stares blankly into the cold and dreary rain. Standing in the heavy downpour, a young boy cries intensely with absolute rage burning inside him. Albert sincerely apologizes to his father for suddenly calling him from the night order for help. The uncle gently reassures Albert that it is perfectly fine and he will handle the rest. Willibald tells his exhausted brother that everything is going well since their sister-in-law passed away recently. The grieving father looks away with a profoundly sorrowful and weary expression painted on his face. Holding back his deep sorrow, the determined father declares he wants to personally send Leah off. The heartbroken family violently sobs inside their quiet mansion while a maid silently holds baby Siegbert. Siegbert silently realizes during the tragic funeral speech that his beloved mother actually had an illness. He tearfully remembers that his beautiful mother was always vibrant and never seemed to be suffering. The baby bitterly regrets not using his special appraisal eyes to realize his mother was sick. Sitting closely together, the concerned father notices Theo walking away and quietly asks where she goes. Theo gently explains that she is thinking of greeting Gelt at their beloved mother's outdoor grave. She sadly reflects that Gelt truly loved their beautiful mother far more than anyone else did. Opening the heavy wooden door, Theo suddenly gasps and urgently screams for Gelt to please wait. Theo nervously walks down the quiet hallway alongside a concerned maid while calling out Gelt's name. Looking slightly relieved, the young girl mentions she was just about to come and get him. A sudden explosion violently shatters the surrounding walls while an enraged voice screams out in regret. Gelt violently unleashes dark magic while screaming furiously that everything is the newborn baby's complete fault. The deeply terrified maid tightly holds Siegbert and screams in sheer panic at the approaching danger. Desperate to survive the sudden attack, the quick maid forcefully summons a protective light wall barrier. The incredibly massive dark magic strikes the exterior mansion walls like a highly destructive thunder spear. Theo screams in absolute horror as the explosive magical blast violently shatters the defensive barrier instantly. The panicked family desperately begs the enraged boy to stop his furious rampage before causing death. Sprinting forward, the angry father quickly tackles the violent boy to the ground with a grunt. The terrified girls scream for their father to hurry and quickly cast healing magic on everyone. The father angrily restrains Gelt while demanding to know why he is doing such stupid things. He fiercely explains that carrying Siegbert actually miraculously improved their mother's failing health and bought time. Gelt furiously denies this truth and bitterly screams that the newborn baby completely killed their mother. The stern father firmly orders Albert to step away while he violently deals with the boy. A massive magical barrier suddenly erupts between them to completely block the incredibly dangerous ongoing violence. Gelt violently punches the solid magical barrier in pure frustration while letting out a painful grunt. The father anxiously checks on Siegbert while Willibald loudly praises the brave maid's incredibly good reaction. Willibald steps forward to quickly cast a soothing water healing spell while reassuring the terrified maid. The skilled uncle gently smiles and warmly praises the two of them for doing good jobs. The older sister tightly embraces the violently crying younger sister while trying to calm her breathing. Willibald assures the highly anxious father that baby Siegbert is completely fine and fully healed now. Willibald volunteers to look after Siegbert while firmly instructing his stressed brother to talk with Gelt. The deeply grieving father stares down in pure disbelief at the terrible thing his son attempted. A stern figure commands Marie and Theo to come along while asking if injured Marie can stand. Clutching her chest painfully, the tearful young girl bravely confirms that she can still manage to stand. After being reminded of her serious injuries, the stubborn maid insists on sending Anna and others instead. Confidently stepping forward, the remaining loyal staff firmly promise to take excellent care of the grand mansion. Struggling violently against his captor, an enraged boy demands his release while someone quietly expresses their gratitude. Unleashing immense dark energy, the furious boy prepares a devastating magical strike from his glowing spell circles. Hot tears stream down his contorted face as pure unadulterated rage completely consumes the grieving older brother. Shielding the newborn baby, the anxious father and terrified sisters stare helplessly at the incredibly violent outburst. Pleading desperately, the older sister asks why Gelt did terrible things while asserting Siegbert is completely innocent. Screaming in bitter frustration, the enraged boy accuses his entire family of being foolishly blinded by lies. The heartbroken sister cries out that such devastating hatred between innocent siblings should absolutely never happen here. Begging through her flowing tears, the devastated girl desperately asks Gelt to swear off this horrific violence. Completely ignoring her desperate pleas, the murderous boy glares forward and violently vows to kill baby Siegbert. Hearing this incredibly ruthless death threat, the terrified young girl completely freezes in absolute shock and horror. Desperate to prevent further tragedy, the frightened sister strongly begs their father to keep Gelt far away. Glaring fiercely, she aggressively declares herself as Siegbert's ally and promises zero forgiveness for any future attacks. Hearing his sister's absolute rejection, the aggressive boy widens his tearful eyes in deep and painful shock. Sighing heavily, the weary father wonders aloud exactly who planted these incredibly dangerous thoughts into Gelt's mind. Understanding the grave situation, the uncle seriously agrees that they must immediately uncover the entire hidden truth. The deeply exhausted father sharply agrees with a fierce scowl firmly plastered across his highly stressed face. Tears stream relentlessly down Gelt's face as he bitterly wonders why the newborn infant always receives everything. Remembering happier times, he furiously realizes that the fragile newborn has remained the absolute center of attention. He angrily resents how the universally loved infant constantly stayed beside their mother while he remained abandoned. Staring at the completely oblivious baby, the discarded older brother fiercely accuses him of stealing their mother. Seething with unbridled jealousy and burning hatred, the broken boy bitterly spits out the tiny infant's name. Refusing to accept reality, the deeply hurt older brother violently swears that he will never forgive Siegbert. The heavily tense atmosphere shatters when the two young sisters suddenly gasp and loudly shout Siegbert's name. Rushing forward, the immensely relieved girls tightly embrace the tiny infant while repeatedly thanking God for safety. The friendly uncle smiles warmly while asking the highly confused baby if he can understand their words. Inspecting the tiny infant resting safely upon the bed, the uncle confidently confirms he appears perfectly fine. The baby silently realizes that his older brother truly hates him after remembering that terrifying funeral glare. Trembling with internal fear, the highly shocked reincarnated man simply cannot believe his brother genuinely attempted murder. Recalling the recent violent confrontation, the baby nervously admits that horrific murderous gaze remains permanently burned inside. The deeply apologetic sister cries over failing to protect him while asserting their older sibling is essentially good. The helpful uncle actively deploys protective surveillance magic and reassures the grateful girls about keeping Siegbert safe. Cuddling closely, the fiercely loyal older sister softly promises to always protect the vulnerable infant from danger. Exhausted from casting powerful healing magic, the highly protective girl peacefully falls completely asleep beside the infant. Addressing the quiet sister, the uncle gently acknowledges how incredibly hard she desperately tried holding everything back. Gazing downward with serious eyes, the younger girl firmly states that their mother's tragic death changes nothing. Meanwhile, the heavily conflicted boy stands alone with a deeply sorrowful expression completely overshadowing his youthful face. The baby internally states that he firmly knows everyone in his family felt the exact same way. The family peacefully remembers that little Siegbert created their final warm and truly happy memories with their beloved mother. Smiling warmly, the helpful uncle sincerely agrees that he completely believes in those highly precious final family memories. Resting quietly, the surprised infant silently reflects that he never realized his family cherished his helpless presence so much. The caring uncle promises to watch the baby while gently urging the exhausted young girls to finally get sleep. Looking up with immense gratitude, the older sister sincerely thanks their helpful uncle for keeping tiny Siegbert completely safe. Giving a highly reassuring smile, the incredibly handsome uncle tenderly looks down at his precious young family members. The uncle turns his gentle gaze and softly praises his deeply exhausted brother for doing an incredibly good job. Standing firmly in the room, the deeply serious father maintains a highly stoic and heavily burdened facial expression. The tired father helplessly explains that guilt remains completely consumed by an incredibly useless and unshakable burning hatred. The uncle calmly reveals that their own father is surprisingly willing to take the highly troubled boy inside. Deciding firmly, the weary father sadly agrees to permanently banish the dangerous boy from their peaceful family mansion. The stern uncle narrows his sharp eyes while quietly acknowledging the incredibly difficult but deeply necessary parental decision. The uncle solemnly reveals that his special magical appraisal confirmed the angry boy was absolutely never brainwashed by anyone. They heavily suspect the deeply mysterious magic school might have maliciously contaminated the young boy's highly vulnerable developing mind. Agreeing completely, the two men seriously plan to thoroughly investigate the highly suspicious magic academy for dangerous hidden clues. Attempting to leave immediately, the heavily exhausted father suddenly collapses forward with a deeply painful and heavy grunt. Catching the falling man quickly, the highly concerned uncle firmly demands that his stubborn brother immediately get some rest. The observant uncle seriously notes that his brother has completely pushed his broken heart and physical body beyond limits. Promising to uncover the hidden truth, the dedicated uncle sincerely vows to completely handle the incredibly dangerous upcoming investigation. Kneeling weakly by the grand door, the utterly broken father tearfully apologizes to his newly deceased and beloved wife. Standing completely alone on the quiet balcony, an incredibly furious figure bitterly curses his absolutely pathetic and worthless weakness. Glaring fiercely into the dark night, the intensely enraged man ominously declares that his hidden enemy has crossed lines. Swearing absolute vengeance, the incredibly furious man violently promises to drag the unknown enemy into a deeply painful hell. The highly observant infant silently notes how the massive family tragedy profoundly changed his deeply grieving and traumatized siblings. Thinking deeply, the tiny boy solemnly remembers the vastly different life paths his heavily divided older brothers eventually took. The incredibly perceptive baby quietly realizes that even the strongest adult men were deeply transformed by this horrific tragedy. Staring forward with incredibly wide eyes, the deeply determined baby confidently acknowledges his own profound and highly personal transformation. Abandoning his childish facade entirely, the incredibly motivated boy diligently studies advanced magic and highly complex martial arts daily. Steeling his absolute resolve, the brave boy firmly decides to boldly face his dangerous future without any lingering regrets. Remembering his beautiful mother warmly, the highly motivated boy promises to constantly honor her incredibly precious and dying wish. Wielding incredibly powerful magical energy, the talented young boy confidently realizes his incredibly special abilities can truly protect everyone. For highly transformative years quickly pass by as a slightly older boy confidently walks down a brightly lit hallway. The growing boy stops completely when an older sibling urgently calls out his name from behind in the hallway. Opening her mouth widely, the highly desperate older sister desperately shouts an incredibly loud and urgent plea toward him. She desperately begs the highly capable young boy to please take her along to fight the incredibly dangerous monsters. The determined young boy boldly asks his older brother Theo to take him to defeat monsters. A highly shocked Theo stammers while the boy reveals knowing about his secret adventurer guild job. The clever child apologizes while explaining that his special appraisal eyes revealed Theo's entire magical status. The knowledgeable child calmly explains seeing the upcoming monster subjugation plan involving an adventurer named Nikolai. Looking sternly downward, the older brother firmly refuses to bring an inexperienced child into dangerous battles. Refusing to accept rejection, the highly determined boy forcefully summons a swirling vortex of wind magic. A completely stunned Theo watches the young boy effortlessly manifest incredibly powerful magic for his age. The confident boy explains learning that simply practicing magic daily absolutely will not increase magic power. The exhausted young boy frustratedly wonders why handling beginner magic fails to increase his advanced power. Stepping forward, the knowledgeable older brother quickly explains that the boy simply must raise his level. He details how people subconsciously absorb immense power and grow strictly by defeating dangerous roaming monsters. Showing a magical interface, he explains that gaining experience through combat directly increases base ability levels. Staring forward intently, the young boy firmly realizes fighting monsters remains his only path to strength. The supportive older brother acknowledges the necessity of battle experience while praising the boy's incredible magic. Leaning down affectionately, the proud older brother gently questions why the talented child feels overly rushed. The fiercely determined boy urgently explains feeling powerless to help whenever someone highly precious faces death. Clutching his tiny fists, the serious boy desperately wants rapid strength because sudden tragedies happen anywhere. Remembering a deeply painful past trauma, the highly concerned older brother halts the boy's dangerous magic. The decisive older brother commands their servant to immediately prepare a carriage toward the White Forest. Hearing this sudden approval, the absolutely thrilled young boy joyfully thanks his highly supportive older brother. Looking completely serious, the cautious older brother firmly orders the young boy to never get separated. Staring with wide eyes, the highly eager young boy immediately agrees to remain incredibly careful today. The confident older brother decides to let the young boy defeat a white rabbit monster today. He explains the white hunt represents a sacred tradition where noble children experience their first kill. Nodding in perfect understanding, the focused young boy enthusiastically declares today's battle a highly important rehearsal. The highly observant older brother smiles while noting they possess incredibly good luck for this mission. The relieved brother explains their deeply overprotective older sister would absolutely never allow this dangerous trip. He fondly remembers how their fiercely protective sister constantly hovered nearby ever since his tragic injury. The gentle older brother softly asks the young boy not to hate their sister's overbearing affection. Smiling warmly, the highly sincere young boy quickly reassures him about loving their big sister deeply. Staring downward warmly, the highly supportive older brother gently adds himself into that deep familial affection. Sweating nervously, they both agree to return incredibly fast before their angry sister inevitably chases them. A highly elegant horse carriage hastily departs through the massive stone gates of the grand estate. The highly respectful butler promises to successfully retrieve them again precisely at the deeply scheduled time. The highly amused servant agrees to keep secrets while warmly noting the brother sounds like father. The highly cautious brother strictly forbids using magic around Nikolai to thoroughly protect their family secret. Confidently turning around, the older brother happily declares it is finally time to start moving out. The highly confused young boy stares upward blankly with a highly prominent question mark floating nearby. The reincarnated adult feels deeply embarrassed but logically remembers 5-year-olds generally hold hands outside. The deeply touched older brother gazes softly as the tiny young boy gently grabs his hand. The intensely serious older sister sternly warns the young boy if anything ever happens this time. She passionately promises the tiny boy that she will absolutely protect little Sieg from any danger. The deeply excited children happily run past beautiful grand gates toward a massive glowing water fountain. Standing beside magnificent white trees, the older brother cheerfully announces they have finally arrived here today. The older brother excitedly explains the unique magic power making the beautiful plants completely white here. He details how terrifying monsters live nearby but novice adventurers can safely defeat them for practice. The highly eager young boy happily agrees not to go far too deep into the dangerous forest. A highly energetic man suddenly appears and casually asks why Theo abruptly changed the hunting place. The older brother stares silently with incredibly wide eyes at the unexpected arrival of the energetic man. The energetic man excitedly greets the deeply polite young boy and loudly calls him a cute chibi. The loud man happily praises the highly graceful able family education, making the boy so incredibly polite. Panicking immensely, the older brother desperately begs Nikolai not to treat the tiny boy so roughly. The highly observant young boy silently concludes the incredibly energetic man doesn't feel like a bad guy. The energetic rank D adventurer happily introduces himself as Nikolai von Baden with basic beginner magic. The highly analytical boy uses his appraisal eyes and silently wonders if everyone normally possesses such stats. The older brother apologizes for the sudden change while explaining the highly important white hunt rehearsal. The bravely confident boy loudly declares he forced his brother to strictly bring him despite previous plans. The confident young boy firmly promises to give Nikolai all the valuable monster loots for his cooperation. The highly amused Nikolai smiles warmly while praising the tiny chibi for deeply knowing how to negotiate. The excited man cheerfully agrees to accompany this chibi training because he finds it highly interesting. The incredibly relieved young boy sighs thankfully while silently praising God that things will go smoothly today. The highly energetic Nikolai loudly cheers as they enthusiastically go searching for their very first prey. The frustrated adventurer sharply calls Theo highly overprotective for constantly worrying about the tiny boy falling. Sweating nervously, the highly overwhelmed young boy accurately notes this is expected from such an energetic guy. The highly curious young boy gently asks why his older brother secretly defeats monsters alongside Nikolai today. The deeply honest older brother gently explains that Nikolai actively helps him earn money for medical bills. The older brother sadly reveals their deeply poor fallen noble family desperately needs money beyond living expenses. The highly protective older brother softly pats the boy's head while mentioning his little sister's annoying sickness. The deeply observant young boy stares upward silently with incredibly wide and perfectly round glowing dark eyes. The perceptive boy correctly realizes he simply cannot pay the heavy medical bills if he works alone. The highly cheerful older brother claims he purely enjoys practicing swordsmanship alongside his good buddy named Nikolai. The deeply understanding boy apologizes to Nikolai for forcing him away from far more profitable hunting grounds. The loudly laughing Nikolai violently rubs the boy's head while asserting white rabbits make incredibly good money. The highly energetic adventurer suddenly interrupts the conversation while excitedly announcing he found their very first target. The highly startled young boy urgently begs the powerful men to quickly wait a moment while preparing. The highly determined boy secretly plans to dramatically raise his completely pathetic level 1 status to 3. The fiercely focused boy boldly decides to effectively use his powerful appraisal eyes during the upcoming fight. The highly skilled boy instantly analyzes the white rabbit vulnerabilities to powerful fire and dark magic elements. The fiercely confident boy quickly stops their surrounding strategy and firmly declares he will aim from here. The highly doubtful adventurer wildly questions the distant attack since the tiny boy seemingly lacks magic knowledge. Siegbert unleashes a powerful fireball that strikes the white rabbit monster and causes it to cry out in pain. Shocked by the high firepower, Nikolai stares while Theo claims their family has a very special training method today. A magical blast consumes the small monster as the impact creates a cloud of dust in the white forest. Grinning with a massive smile, the young boy cheers for his very first successful monster kill in this world. Questioning the excessive firepower, Nikolai reacts as the group assesses the significant damage to the surrounding area right now. Praising the able family power, the experienced adventurer watches the young boy with a deeply complicated and curious expression. After checking his status screen, the boy sighs because defeating one monster was not enough to reach level 2. Moving further into the beautiful white forest, the group continues their hunt for more white rabbits to practice magic. Using Wind Scout magic, Theo searches for nearby monsters while the others prepare for their next dangerous battle encounter. Detection magic reveals a group of rabbits, but Theo senses another presence that feels incredibly strange and out of place. Sensing a fundamentally different presence, Theo mentions sensing one more thing that feels wrong compared to the other monsters. Frantically running toward the target, Nikolai carries the boy as Theo desperately tells him to be much more careful. More rabbits fall to Siegbert's magic as the group continues their productive hunt through the snowy and white forest. An interface window appears showing that the boy is still level 1 despite his recent successful battles against monsters. Glowing with a brilliant light, the young boy joyfully announces that he finally reached level 2 in this world. Laughter erupts from Nikolai at the boy's funny words while Theo looks completely confused by the strange gaming terminology. Internal panic strikes Siegbert as he realizes the concept of leveling up is only known to him as a reincarnator. Noticing his magic power increase, the boy realizes his special growth blessing is finally working as he originally intended. Praise for hitting weak points comes from Nikolai, who calls the boy an incredibly extraordinary and talented young child. Wondering if the Abel family are all monsters, Nikolai watches while Theo credits their father's greatness for the talent. Feeling embarrassed about being carried, Siegbert notices Theo is running out of excuses for his brother's immense magical talent. Preparation for the carriage pickup begins despite Siegbert wanting more level growth before they return to the family mansion. Suddenly an aggressive group of goblins appears and rushes toward the party with loud and terrifyingly chaotic battle cries. Protective instinct takes over as Theo orders Siegbert to hide while Nikolai looks shocked by the sudden goblin ambush. Chaotic movement fills the forest as the group prepares for an immediate and dangerous confrontation with the approaching goblins. Strange behavior from the goblins puzzles Theo because they usually attack when approached but now appear to be fleeing. Realization strikes the older brother as he understands the goblins are actually running away from something far more dangerous. Terrifying nature of the approaching threat becomes clear as Theo stares into the dark woods with a shocked expression. Giant shadows loom over the entire group as a massive magical impact silences the once peaceful and white forest. Intense pressure pushes everyone back as Nikolai grunts in pain from the force of the incoming and powerful enemy. Checking on the safety of his companions, Theo screams while scanning the area after the sudden physical impact. Surrounded now by the goblins, Nikolai expresses confusion because the monsters have stopped running away from the group today. Calculation reveals the earlier retreat was actually a bait designed to separate the group from their safe forest exit. Defensive stance is maintained by Theo, who argues that simple goblins lack the intelligence for such a complex plan. Staring intensely at the new threat, the older brother confirms that this specific enemy possesses incredibly high tactical intelligence. Escape orders are shouted by Theo, who tells Nikolai to run because a dangerous monster appeared from the forest. Absolute horror fills Siegbert's face as Theo warns that they will all die if they do not escape immediately. Shocked adventurers realize an impossible and highly dangerous goblin general has violently breached the forest boundary. Looking closely, they quickly notice the massive beast is heavily injured and missing its original armor. Theo quickly deduces the enraged berserk monster violently forced its way through the protective magic barrier. A sudden realization of extreme danger rapidly washes over the deeply terrified and highly anxious group. The monstrous beast viciously charges forward while Theo desperately screams for his panicked companions to scatter. Panicking internally, the young adventurer quickly realizes defeating this berserk threat is completely impossible right now. He terrifyingly calculates that his highly precious brother and friend will definitely die if nothing changes. Stealing his absolute resolve, the brave older brother vigorously vows to protect Siegbert despite overwhelming odds. Nikolai confidently steps forward to firmly handle the swarming goblins but quickly becomes overwhelmed by numbers. The brave little boy suddenly unleashes a highly destructive fireball directly into the massive goblin swarm. A completely stunned Nikolai simply cannot believe the tiny child defeated so many monsters so easily. Catching his breath, the exhausted adventurer quickly checks if the young boy remains completely unharmed today. The boy realizes he reached level 3 but his fragile child body lacks the necessary physical stamina. He accurately calculates that using advanced magic will instantly cause him to faint from massive exhaustion. Facing the giant beast, the frustrated older brother bitterly curses his severely insufficient magical attack power. Knowing the massive stakes, the desperate swordsman actively prepares to risk everything on one final strike. He violently unleashes incredibly powerful ice magic, hoping to instantly freeze the terrifying monster in tracks. The beast aggressively counters with advanced magic, causing the heavily injured older brother to scream loudly. The deeply terrified child screams for his brother while Nikolai desperately tries holding the boy back. Grabbing the frantic child tightly, the heavily battered adventurer sincerely assures him they will absolutely survive. Bleeding profusely from his injuries, the highly determined adventurer declares it is finally their turn fighting. Using advanced appraisal eyes, the intelligent boy discovers the monster possesses incredibly troublesome magic immunity armor. Refusing to lose another precious family member, the fiercely determined child decides he must completely intervene. He logically knows he must act incredibly fast to permanently save his highly precious older brother. Theo lies bleeding while bitterly regretting his complete inability to stop past family tragedies from happening. The absolutely devastated older brother constantly remembers the overwhelming regret regarding his dearly departed loving mother. He painfully curses himself for irresponsibly bringing his vulnerable younger brother into this highly dangerous forest. A massive monster violently prepares to totally crush the injured boy who intensely fears failing siblings. Suddenly an intricate net constructed entirely of pure wind violently wraps around the massive charging monster. The highly startled beast completely halts its destructive charge while looking around in absolute pure confusion. The fiercely determined young boy miraculously casts the spell while desperately calling out his brother's name. Both older adventurers stare with completely wide eyes at the miraculous magical intervention happening right now. A brilliantly glowing light wall immediately blocks the massive monster's devastating attack from completely crushing them. Struggling heavily against the immense pressure, the exhausted child desperately screams for his older brother's help. Harnessing his unique wind magic, the older brother forcefully prepares an incredibly powerful and decisive counterattack. He aggressively thrusts his enchanted blade forward while firmly shouting the name of his wind needle. The incredibly sharp wind magic violently pierces toward the massive monster with absolutely devastating forward force. Straining with pure determination, the injured swordsman forcefully pushes his intense magical attack even deeper inside. The impenetrable monster armor finally shatters into countless tiny pieces under the immensely powerful magical strike. A deeply relieved Nikolai happily praises Theo for displaying incredibly amazing and powerfully destructive combat skills. The giant goblin general is violently thrown to the ground by an incredibly powerful and heavy strike. The young boy and the older adventurer watch in absolute shock as the massive creature violently crashes. The terrified monstrous beast screams in immense agony as sharp wind spikes aggressively pierce its thick skin. Nikolai stares in utter disbelief while loudly shouting that the incredibly powerful strike should have killed it. Realizing the protective monster helmet is completely destroyed now, they immediately see an open opportunity to strike. The young boy urgently commands a bewildered Nikolai to throw him directly toward the monster's exposed eyeball. Glowing with intense magical energy, the highly determined child bravely charges forward to unleash his hidden power. A heavily battered Nikolai completely freezes in absolute shock while listening to the young boy's desperate request. Tears stream down the fiercely determined boy's face as he violently refuses to let his family die. The older adventurer's eyes widen with pure realization as he finally understands the young boy's absolute resolve. Gathering immense physical strength, Nikolai violently hurls the tiny magic user directly toward the massive raging beast. Flying rapidly through the air, the brave boy intensely focuses on the crucial chance his brother created. The tiny boy rapidly shoots across the chaotic battlefield like a guided missile, aiming for the head. Unleashing his most destructive spell, the incredibly focused young boy violently screams the fierce flame spear name. A massive fiery explosion violently engulfs the enormous goblin general while the weary adventurers watch in awe. Nikolai stares forward in sheer disbelief while loudly stammering that the tiny child actually defeated the monster. Breathing heavily, the deeply exhausted child weakly acknowledges his completely successful strike against the highly dangerous enemy. The severely drained boy begins falling rapidly from the sky while a panicked Nikolai desperately screams out. Ignoring his own severe injuries, Theo aggressively leaps forward with a highly desperate expression to save him. The bleeding older brother grunts in intense physical pain while anxiously asking if tiny Sieg remains safe. Resting safely in his brother's highly protective arms, the immensely relieved young child confirms he is fine. The highly frustrated older brother sincerely apologizes for completely failing to protect the tiny boy once again. The smiling young boy quickly denies this while praising his older brother for successfully creating the opening. The deeply touched older brother warmly embraces the broadly smiling young child while expressing profound heartfelt gratitude. Staring upward with incredibly fond and loving eyes, the severely injured older brother quietly agrees with him. Nikolai gently casts light healing magic on the boys while happily stating he successfully protected them today. The highly serious adventurer suddenly shifts his tone while narrowing his sharp eyes closely at little Siegbert. The nervous young boy completely freezes as Nikolai intensely asks exactly what kind of terrifying monster he is. Nikolai aggressively questions the boy's absurd magical power and entirely rejects any further generic family bloodline excuses. Stepping protectively in front of his sweating younger brother, Theo firmly states they simply cannot answer that. The highly determined older brother fiercely glares forward while desperately prioritizing his highly precious little sibling's safety. The tension instantly breaks as the highly energetic adventurer smiles brightly and casually accepts their deep secret. Lying casually on the ground, Nikolai happily agrees to stay entirely quiet regarding their highly mysterious circumstances. He cheerfully vows absolute secrecy because revealing the truth would severely ruin his own professional adventurer reputation. In exchange for complete silence, the highly curious adventurer respectfully asks if he can take the monster's ashes. Nikolai happily explains the highly valuable magic crystal ash drops from advanced monsters and sells for fortunes. The broadly smiling young boy immediately agrees to the highly profitable trade to completely help Nikolai's family. The deeply conflicted boy secretly wonders if his terrifying previous life's atrocious bad luck still curses him. The mysterious floating system instantly appears behind the startled boy to boldly correct his deeply flawed assumption. The omniscient system bluntly explains the unbelievably dangerous encounter actually happened specifically to fulfill the boy's desires. The system cheerfully describes this terrifyingly massive probability manipulation as a highly miraculous chance for lucky ones. The highly horrified boy deeply fears his insane luck will constantly drag his beloved family into horrific danger. Gazing softly at his highly supportive older brother, the thoughtful child discovers a vastly different new perspective. Clenching his tiny fist fiercely, the highly determined boy vows to grow exponentially stronger to completely prevent sacrifices. Staring forward with intensely glowing eyes, the young child confidently declares he absolutely possesses the ultimate power. The deeply exhausted group peacefully rests within the forest while highly anxious about hiding secrets from their butler. A highly mysterious and profoundly terrifying striped feline monster silently stalks them from within the dense forest bushes.
Two panicking smugglers trudge through the silent forest, terrified of spending their lives in jail if they are caught. One smuggler rationalizes the immense risk by dreaming of lifelong wealth, completely unaware of a looming presence nearby. A sudden, blood-curdling scream violently shatters the quiet atmosphere of the dense forest. The smugglers freeze in absolute terror as a massive goblin general suddenly blocks their escape path. Realizing the high-level monster should not be wandering in this shallow area, the men immediately turn and flee for their lives. Abandoning their valuable cargo, the fleeing smugglers agree the escaped sacred beast can easily be recaptured later. Sprinting away, they furiously curse a stingy magician for skimping on their manpower for the upcoming sacred beast auction. Left behind in the grass, a tiny, severely wounded feline creature lies bleeding next to its broken transport crate. The injured beast whimpers and struggles to stand as a dark, ominous shadow slowly looms over it. A few months after the Goblin General's defeat, a young boy named Sieg stands before a small monster in the White Forest. Moving with surprising speed, Sieg effortlessly blasts the horned creature with a swift, explosive magical strike. Sieg internally sighs at this noble white hunt tradition, secretly knowing this is far from his first time fighting a monster. A woman screams his name in pure excitement as the brief battle effortlessly concludes. Marie swoops in to embrace her little brother, enthusiastically praising him for perfectly hitting the monster's vital spot. Sieg gasps for air in his sister's crushing hug, while she proudly declares him an absolute genius. Observing from afar, two men marvel at how incredibly high Sieg's magical control and raw power actually are. Sweating nervously, Sieg realizes he failed to hide his true strength from his uncle, who easily noticed the boy artificially suppressed his power to look normal. Sieg's father casually permits these little adventures, surprising the uncle who had just heard rumors of the boy sneaking out of the mansion. Marie sharply scolds the group for slipping out unchaperoned, demanding they seriously reflect on their reckless actions. Sieg recalls the severe scolding they received after secretly defeating the Goblin General, though he successfully kept his direct involvement hidden. Theo formally reports that the destroyed magical barriers and the out-of-place demon corpse have already been completely dealt with. Relieved by his father's swift cover-up, Sieg quietly confirms to himself that his group was the one who actually killed the beast. Marion aggressively smothers the embarrassed boy with celebratory hugs as a special present for his hard work. Sieg's attention suddenly snaps away from the affection as he notices an unfamiliar, unsettling shadow lurking nearby. Ignoring Marion's warnings to stay put, Sieg excitedly dashes off into the brush to do some quick exploring. Marion desperately calls out his name as the young boy disappears from her immediate view. The father calmly stops her pursuit, confident that Sieg will be perfectly fine since they can easily track his location with magic. A terrifying vision of Sieg unleashing crackling, violent magic violently flashes through Marion's anxious mind. Overcome by sudden panic, Marion clutches her face and declares she absolutely cannot leave Sieg alone. Without waiting for permission, she immediately sprints into the forest to frantically track down the young boy. The uncle notes her extreme overprotectiveness stems from a past incident with Gelt, though he hoped Sieg's display of strength would have calmed her nerves. The father admits he reluctantly allowed Theo to accompany Sieg, wondering exactly how much the children already know about the situation. Watching Sieg enthusiastically chase a butterfly, the men observe that while children are naturally curious, Marion simply cannot stomach the idea of Sieg being alone. The uncle solemnly notes that no magic can ever heal heartache, resolving that they can only sit back and wait to see how things unfold. The group strategically splits up as the father and Theo leave to inspect the magical barrier, while the uncle stays behind to monitor the kids. Meanwhile, Sieg cautiously navigates the dense foliage, sensing that whatever anomaly he felt must be hiding right around this spot. A fierce, near-death white tiger suddenly growls at him, aggressively demanding to know why the boy is following it. Sieg's appraisal eyes instantly trigger, identifying the creature as a newborn male sacred beast equipped with maximum magical power. Shocked by the rare encounter, Sieg is even more astounded to realize he can perfectly understand the beast's spoken language. Sweating nervously, the boy suddenly remembers that his innate language mastery skill is actively translating the creature's hostile words. Examining the heavily wounded beast, Sieg questions why an endangered white tiger is resting in this shallow forest. Noticing a high-grade magical mark on its fur, he deduces the creature was either smuggled or hunted by state-level wizards before escaping to this spot. The fierce tiger growls defensively, but Sieg calmly approaches and reassures the creature that he is only here to save it. Channeling his mana, the young boy casts a potent light healing spell that makes the injured beast wince in temporary pain. The magical light fades, leaving the tiger staring in absolute bewilderment as its severe injuries completely vanish. Smiling warmly, Sieg gently pets the confused beast and apologizes for frightening it during the sudden healing process. Stroking the creature's incredibly fluffy fur, the boy marvels at how incredibly cute the newborn tiger looks up close. Relieved by the beast's safety, Sieg affectionately praises the tiny tiger for surviving such a terrifying ordeal. The beast's mind flashes back to grim memories of being violently caged and abused by cruel, laughing smugglers. Overwhelmed by the boy's unexpected kindness, the tiger cries softly as Sieg scoops it into a comforting hug. Beaming with pure joy, the grateful beast excitedly declares Sieg a good person while embracing him back. A massive magical symbol suddenly erupts beneath them, completely startling the boy as he holds the tiger. A system notification chimes in, announcing that a formal contract with the white tiger has been successfully established. Panic washes over Sieg's face as he desperately tries to comprehend how he accidentally bonded with a wild monster. The system clarifies that a blood contract was formed, making the boy scream in absolute terror at the irreversible bond. Realizing the beast had licked his open wound earlier, Sieg mentally kicks himself for triggering the ancient blood magic. Marion's desperate, piercing scream violently shatters the moment, causing the startled boy to jump in fright. Sprinting into the clearing, Marion scoops her little brother into a tight, frantic hug while scolding him for wandering off alone. Her anxious scolding suddenly halts as she notices that Sieg feels suspiciously heavier than usual. Pulling back slightly, she stares in sheer disbelief at the wide-eyed tiger cub awkwardly clamped to Sieg's chest. Marion shrieks in shock as the uncle approaches, staring at the bright cub and asking if Sieg picked up a black cat. Sweating nervously, Sieg frantically lies that the cub is a normal cat whose fur turned white from eating the forest's magical flora. The uncle points out the fur is impossibly white, while Sieg internally panics because black cats do not even live in this region. Panicking over the political implications, the boy realizes he just illegally contracted a rare, protected sacred beast on his father's territory. Desperate to avoid a scandal, Sieg resolves to use his concealment magic later to hide the tiger's true identity indefinitely. Mustering his best puppy dog eyes, Sieg tightly hugs the disguised tiger and begs his father to let him keep it. Marion vehemently objects, arguing that it is far too dangerous to let a child raise a wild magical beast. Pointing at Sieg's hand, she uses his fresh bite wound as proof of the creature's hostile nature, completely unaware of the blood contract. The uncle agrees that the beast might attack again, leaving the father to close his eyes and weigh the heavy decision. Staring sternly at his son, the father demands that Sieg take full responsibility and swear to protect the creature for its entire life. Without a moment of hesitation, Sieg confidently accepts the immense burden and promises to raise the beast well. Convinced by the boy's unyielding resolve, the father relents and officially allows Sieg to keep his new companion. The defeated uncle sighs and instructs Marion to help Sieg out, accepting that the matter is finally settled. Sieg beams with absolute joy and thanks his father profusely, while the tiger cheerfully echoes its own gratitude. Impressed by the boy's skills, the uncle praises Sieg for utilizing such advanced healing magic to save the injured creature. Marion reluctantly drops her argument but stubbornly admits she still does not trust the wild beast at all. Pointing fiercely at the cub, she vows to strictly monitor its every move to ensure Sieg remains perfectly safe. Hearing this threat, the tiger immediately drops to the ground and rolls onto its back to pose as a harmless, adorable pet. Marion glares intensely at the shameless display, refusing to let the creature's cute pose fool her protective instincts. Later at the mansion, Sieg realizes Marion's constant, suffocating surveillance makes it impossible for him to practice his advanced magic. Hurrying through the courtyard with the tiger, Sieg resolves to find a way to secure some crucial alone time for his training. He sighs at his sister's overprotectiveness, confident that his immense power guarantees a dangerous situation will never happen. Clenching his fist, the boy vows to get stronger as fast as possible so he can protect everyone he loves. Misinterpreting Sieg's intense expression, the tiger tilts its head and asks if the boy is feeling scared. Hoping to cheer his master up, the tiger playfully pounces on Sieg and initiates a joyful rubbing session. Watching from afar, Marion stares in absolute bewilderment as Sieg happily wrestles with the fluffy beast in the grass. Smiling warmly, Sieg admits the creature really isn't bad at all, feeling a genuine bond forming between them. Meanwhile, Marion stews in her deep anxieties, haunted by painful memories where unexpected people hurt the ones she loved most. Clutching her chest, she confesses her profound fear of trusting anyone, feeling like an absolute coward ever since that tragic day. Terrified that history will repeat itself, she resolves to intervene immediately if the beast shows any signs of harming Sieg. The playful tiger suddenly tackles Marion too, demanding she join their rubbing session while she shrieks in pure surprise. Later that night in his bedroom, an exhausted Sieg slumps on his pillows, relieved they somehow survived the chaotic day. The tiger yawns loudly as Sieg realizes Marion's absence makes this the perfect moment for his secret late-night training. Channeling his mana, the eager boy prepares to test out his newly acquired advanced magical spells. The heavy bedroom doors suddenly burst open, completely shattering Sieg's long-awaited moment of peace. A worried-looking Marion stands in the doorway, stunning both Sieg and the tiger into absolute silence. Knowing it is past her bedtime, Sieg confusedly asks his sister what is wrong. Looking incredibly vulnerable, Marion softly admits that it has been a very long time since they shared a quiet moment together. Climbing onto the bed, she casually asks to sleep beside him, leaving Sieg completely dumbfounded. Marion beams with a warm, genuine smile, while Sieg screams internally at the absolute loss of his secret training time. Sieg awakens completely bewildered, wondering how he ended up in such a bizarre sleeping arrangement. Realizing his overprotective sister is closely guarding him, he notes she still deeply distrusts the newly adopted white tiger. Crushed by Marie's suffocating embrace, the boy internally panics that this forced sleepover will completely ruin his secret magical training. Despite his immense frustration, he softly admits he does not actually hate his sister's warm affection. Recalling a high-level spatial spell, Sieg determines his only option is to teleport out of the room just like he did during the goblin fight. Moving with extreme caution, he carefully slips away from his sister's tight grasp without waking her. Channeling his gathered mana, the young boy boldly casts the advanced spatial movement spell. Teleporting successfully to the floor below, he pumps his fist in quiet celebration. Glancing back at his deeply sleeping sister, he breathes a heavy sigh of relief that his risky first attempt was flawless. Feeling triumphant, Sieg excitedly prepares to sneak out to the White Forest for his highly anticipated training session. The fierce little tiger suddenly growls an objection, forcing a panicked Sieg to violently shush the noisy beast. Gently patting the fluffy tiger's head, the boy promises to return long before his sister even notices his absence. Gripped by newfound determination, he silently vows to acquire overwhelming strength to keep his loved ones completely safe. Leaving the anxious cub behind, Sieg confidently triggers his spatial magic once again and vanishes in a bright flash. The tiger grumbles in annoyance, while Marie continues to slumber peacefully in her massive bed. Unable to ignore its protective instincts, the determined beast suddenly leaps down to blindly follow its reckless master. Sieg miraculously materializes in the middle of the dark, moonlit forest. Panting heavily, the exhausted boy realizes just how much stamina that advanced teleportation spell actually drains. Shaking off his deep fatigue, he fiercely declares his readiness to push past his limits for the upcoming white hunt. Eager to test his newfound limits, Sieg stretches his glowing hand to unleash his expanded arsenal of advanced magic. A jagged cluster of razor-sharp ice instantly materializes from his palm, confirming his immense elemental growth. Thrilled by his overwhelming success, he quickly prepares to chain multiple high-tier spells together. Gasping for breath under the immense strain, he desperately pushes himself to cast one final, devastating attack. Gathering every last ounce of his remaining magical power, Sieg violently sparks crackling lightning between his hands. A terrifying, pitch-black silhouette suddenly flashes before his eyes, violently interrupting his intense focus. Paralyzed by a sudden, horrific flashback, the boy screams in pure agony as his spell dangerously destabilizes. His thunder magic violently explodes out of control, blasting raw energy everywhere as he begs the hallucination to stop. A massive, blinding shockwave of chaotic lightning completely obliterates the surrounding forest clearing. Recovering from the blast, he realizes his deep psychological trauma literally warped his spell into a monstrous, berserk entity. His magical reserves completely drained, Sieg collapses to the ground, just as a panicked voice calls out to him. His appraisal eyes system urgently warns him that his reckless overexertion will cause an immediate, dangerous blackout. Desperately fighting to keep his eyes open, the boy curses his own foolishness as his vision rapidly fades to black. Spiraling into deep self-loathing, he bitterly regrets acting so impatiently and exposing his pathetic weakness. A vivid memory of the white tiger tilting its fluffy head and innocently asking if he was scared flashes through his fading mind. He remembers swearing to become an unstoppable force after witnessing his brother suffer for his cursed fate. Tears stream down his face as he admits the brutal trauma of Gelt's horrific beating still secretly paralyzes his soul. Weeping openly, the broken boy confesses his deepest fear of being completely destroyed by his own lingering cowardice. His blurred vision catches a chaotic swarm of magical energy creatures, rapidly converging on his vulnerable position. Meanwhile, back at the estate, frantic servants desperately shout his name into the dark night. Terrified guards report their exhaustive Wind Scout searches have yielded absolutely no trace of the missing boy or his beast. A tearful Marie admits to her uncle that she was sleeping beside Sieg when he vanished, while the uncle assures her he has already called their father to widen the search. Gripping her dress tightly, Marie desperately prays the wild beast didn't do something terrible to her little brother. A maid suddenly arrives to report a sighting of the magical beast child that Sieg had recently contracted. Marie frantically asks if Sieg was with it, but the maid confirms the beast was entirely alone. The maid explains the creature was seen running outside the mansion, heading directly toward the white forest. Bowing deeply, the maid apologizes for the delay, admitting she initially thought her tired eyes were playing tricks on her in the dark. Realizing the beast was actually chasing after Sieg, Marie deduces that the creature didn't kidnap him after all. Without a moment of hesitation, Marie completely ignores the maid's protests and sprints off toward the white forest. A panicked maid calls out to her, while the uncle quickly orders the carriage to be prepared. Arriving at the blasted forest clearing, Marie gasps in sheer terror at the unbelievable scale of the magical destruction. She spots Sieg slumped unconsciously over the heavily bruised white tiger and violently screams his name. Sprinting toward them, Marie frantically asks the exhausted beast if they are both okay. The loyal tiger whimpers softly, revealing it had dragged its unconscious master all the way back to safety. Cradling her little brother's face, Marie notes with rising panic that he is breathing, but remains completely unresponsive. Tears streaming down her face, she desperately wonders what she should do to save him. As the tiger licks her hand for comfort, Marie hardens her resolve and fiercely vows to save him. Sieg slowly regains consciousness, wrapped in a strange, comforting warmth that turns out to be his sister's lap. Marie erupts into fresh tears of absolute relief, violently screaming her gratitude to God that he is finally awake. Blinking away his grogginess, the bewildered boy looks around and weakly asks where he is. Marie crushes him in a desperate, tearful hug, while Sieg weakly stammers an apology for causing so much trouble. Looking up past his weeping sister, the boy suddenly notices his stern father standing right beside the bed. The towering nobleman expresses immense relief at his son's safety, before firmly demanding to know if Sieg went into the white forest alone at night. Sweating nervously under his father's intense gaze, Sieg confirms he went alone and firmly denies being taken away by anyone. Sieg internally panics, realizing he absolutely cannot reveal his secret movement magic or his dangerous advanced training without causing a massive uproar. Trapped by his own secrets, the boy stares at the floor, completely unsure of what lie he could possibly tell his imposing father. The father sternly sentences Sieg to a strict 2-week house arrest, refusing to let such reckless behavior slide unpunished. Accepting his punishment quietly, Sieg listens as his father adds that strict surveillance magic will monitor his every move. The father suddenly softens his tone and calls out his son's name with unexpected gentleness. Kneeling down to eye level, the nobleman notes that Sieg is far too smart to break out purely for the sake of causing trouble. Pointing directly at his son, he accurately deduces that Sieg is hiding something to avoid causing his family any more worry. Placing a reassuring hand on his chest, the father urges the boy to rest easy. He sternly reminds Sieg that no one in the Abel family is weak, insisting the boy must rely on them instead of carrying his heavy burdens alone. Flashing back to his family's incredible combat prowess, Sieg realizes his father is completely right about their overwhelming strength. Tears well up in the boy's eyes as the heavy burden of his lonely struggle slowly begins to lift. Surprised by his sudden tears, Marie calls out his name in deep concern. Gripping the bedsheets, Sieg finally breaks down and confesses that he was secretly training his magic because he wanted to be strong enough to protect everyone. Weeping openly, he admits his deep-seated fear that his weakness would cause his family to disappear just like his mother did. Overwhelmed by absolute guilt, he desperately apologizes to his sister over and over again. The father watches his son's emotional breakdown with wide eyes, struck by a painful memory of his late wife. Marie fiercely crushes her little brother in a protective hug, tearfully vowing that absolutely no one is ever going away again. The father silently echoes his daughter's fierce promise, his expression hardening with absolute resolve. Wrapping his massive arms around both his children, the nobleman fiercely swears he will never let anyone be taken from them again. The reunited family shares a deeply emotional, tearful embrace in the quiet sanctuary of the grand bedroom. The next morning, a deeply embarrassed Sieg sits in bed with his tiger, regretting his massive crying fit in front of his older brothers. Throwing his head back against the pillows, he admits that despite the lingering embarrassment, a massive weight has finally been lifted from his chest. Staring at his hands, he realizes his intense drive to become strong was secretly fueled by a desperate desire to rely on someone else. Shaking off his deep thoughts, he resolves to completely stop doing reckless things that make his loved ones sad. He warmly thanks the little tiger for saving him, noting that he surely would have died if left alone in the destroyed forest. The excited beast completely ignores the serious moment, happily demanding head pats as a reward for its heroic rescue. Laughing brightly, Sieg enthusiastically rubs the fluffy tiger's belly, genuinely grateful for his loyal new companion. Pausing his playful petting, the boy suddenly realizes he never actually gave his contracted beast a proper name. The tiger tilts its head in confusion, as Sieg awkwardly admits he was too rushed before to think of anything besides survival. Thinking intensely, he twirls his finger and decides the creature definitely deserves a fitting title. Poking the beast gently on the nose, Sieg asks how it feels about the name Haku. Haku immediately accepts the name with absolute joy, prompting Sieg to laugh and hug his newly named friend. Beaming with newfound confidence, Sieg declares them official partners and promises they will take care of each other from now on. Meanwhile, the massive Abel family main building stands quietly under the starry night sky. Inside his grand office, the father stares solemnly at a portrait of his late wife Leah, bitterly regretting his failures as a parent. Gazing at Leah's beautiful image, he proudly notes that Sieg's incredible intelligence and magical growth have far surpassed the limits of a normal child. The father softly murmurs to his late wife that Sieg is likely the most gifted child in the entire history of the Abel family. His quiet morning is suddenly interrupted as Alberta and Willie burst through the heavy doors to urgently report on the magical ash found in the White Forest. Alberto reports to his superior that the magic crystal ash found in the White Forest has been officially appraised. The superior identifies the remains of a goblin general and notes a major breach from the Silent Forest into their territory. A shadow of concern falls over the room as they address the critical issue. They reflect on the recent monster hunt in question, who could have possibly defeated such a powerful B-rank beast. The superior confidently asserts that it could only have been Siebert. While they acknowledge Siebert's immense talent, they express doubt that even he could defeat a demon without advanced magic. Alberto explains that Siebert had been hiding his true state, but Theo's discovery of the crystal ash revealed the truth. They ponder how Theo could have been injured deep within the White Forest. They consider the likelihood that Siebert was indeed the one to defeat the monsters. The superior declares that they must erase all traces of these events to protect Siebert. They have already spread false information, crediting an elite knight for the victory to deceive any observers. The superior notes that the matter was resolved peacefully, and the true source of the magical ash remained hidden. The superior praises the promising knight for his efficient handling of the situation. A member of the 3rd Magic Unit reveals they have purchased the ash for teleportation stone research under national orders. 2 knights apologize for the chaos they caused, though the superior dismisses it, calling it a necessary effort for their younger brother. They observe that Siebert possesses a superior magical nature, unlike anyone else, and hasn't yet drawn public attention. They decide to keep Siebert's unique abilities hidden from the Ministry of Magic and the Magic School for now. The superior emphasizes his desire for Siebert to live freely, unbound by political scrutiny. Holding a portrait of his late wife, the father affirms that protecting Siebert is their shared wish. 2 brothers discuss the recent commotion, teasing each other about their role in the monster subjugation. They wonder if this dangerous curiosity is simply the fated path for all the boys in the Abel family. The father reflects on Siebert's extraordinary intelligence and his ability to traverse the forest, speculating he might have used a transference stone. He analyzes the nature of magic stones and theorizes that Siebert must have somehow acquired or learned a high-level teleportation spell. A suggestion is made to give Siebert another look using appraisal skills. Siebert arrives to speak with his father about his recent training and the White Hunt. The father chides Siebert, noting that they were supposed to discuss his hunt only after things calmed down. The father shows Siebert a projection stone, teasing him with the possibility of viewing the footage. The father reveals he has been secretly capturing footage, much to Siebert's surprise. They watch the recording of Siebert, marveling at his mastery of healing magic and his compassionate care for a monster's child. Siebert feels overwhelmed and embarrassed, desperately asking his brothers to give him some breathing room. A banner hangs in the hall, marking the transition to the next day's events at the annex. Siebert accepts the praise, but internalizes the fact that he still has a long way to go. Siebert activates his appraisal skill to analyze the world around him with greater clarity. A status screen appears, revealing the high-level and overwhelming stats of the individual standing before him. The status window lists a massive array of advanced attributes and acquired combat skills. Siebert is completely awestruck by the sheer power and presence of the person he is observing. He feels incredibly fortunate to have his uncle teaching him the basics, even if he cannot practice advanced magic yet. Siebert puzzles over the meaning of a hidden skill identified as Friend of Spirits. He notes that while his total magical capacity has grown, his fundamental magic attribute remains unchanged. Siebert wonders if he was simply overthinking his situation, though he remains deeply curious about his true potential. A man notes that raising such a fascinating and amusing kid is going to be incredibly fun. Smirking confidently, he predicts the boy's unstoppable magical growth will someday zoom completely past his own expectations. Out in the yard, Sieg's uncle calls out to Haku just as the beast bursts through the bushes. Beaming with pride, the fluffy white tiger eagerly presents a tree branch it fetched from the very top. The uncle laughs heartily at the impressive feat, realizing this must be the monster girl Sieg had saved. Observing Haku's fiery red magical aura, the uncle casually confirms her name with Sieg. Leaning in closer, he marvels at what a cute little creature the boy has managed to tame. Despite the uncle's sarcastic comments about her supposedly being a black cat, he admits he has never seen such beautifully white fur before. The uncle happily pets Haku, praising her amazing potential and her dual mastery of lightning and ice magic. Sieg breathes a massive sigh of relief, silently thankful that Haku's concealment magic is working flawlessly. The uncle's playful demeanor suddenly shifts as he notices the flow of magical energy around the beast seems completely wrong. Requesting permission to examine her, the uncle affectionately squishes Haku's fluffy body. His sharp eyes instantly detect a faint, lingering trace of unnatural magic color deep within her fur. He explains that this residual magic acts like a lingering curse, actively inhibiting the beast's natural mana circulation. Confused by the diagnosis, Sieg wonders why his earlier healing magic did not completely cure the creature's underlying issues. The uncle grimly reveals that a tricky curse spell was intentionally cast on the beast. Shocked by the revelation, Sieg learns that treating a cursed wound with standard magic only traps the malicious energy inside the body. Staring at the confirmed curse status on his system interface, Sieg curses himself for being too distracted by Haku's severe injuries to notice. The uncle gently reassures the guilt-ridden boy, explaining that hidden curses easily fool eyes unaccustomed to seeing them. He deduces this was a deliberate act of malicious harassment by whoever originally captured the sacred beast. Plucking a single white hair from Haku's fur, the uncle begins his own meticulous investigation. Smiling dangerously, he vows to track down the criminals responsible and ensure they experience a good taste of pain. Desperate to see Haku use magic again, Sieg begs his uncle to find a way to fix the lingering curse. The uncle sighs, admitting he lacks the specific divine holy purge magic required to easily dispel such a complex curse. Sieg internally panics, realizing that learning such an advanced holy spell from scratch will take far too much time. Staring down at his loyal, cursed partner, the young boy desperately wonders if there is anything he can do right now. A memory of his father's stern advice suddenly flashes through his mind, reminding him to always rely on his family. Eyes widening with sudden realization, Sieg declares he knows exactly who they can count on for help. Later, Marie listens to the grim diagnosis with a hand over her mouth, heartbroken by the sheer cruelty inflicted on the little beast. Sieg desperately begs his older sister to use her newly learned holy magic to purify Haku's tainted body. Marie looks down in absolute shame, tearfully apologizing because she still lacks the necessary magical power to actually cast holy purification. Wiping away her tears, she pulls out a glowing, intricately carved egg-shaped stone to offer an alternative solution. Marie reveals she specially requested this rare holy purification stone from the magic city-state of Lin while their mother was still alive. She confesses that she desperately trained in holy magic with the single-minded desire to cure their mother's fatal illness. Tragically, by the time she finally acquired the purification stone, her mother had already passed away. Staring at the magical artifact, Marie solemnly admits that their mother's condition had deteriorated far beyond what any magic could possibly heal. Tears filling her eyes, Marie recalls the overwhelming joy she felt when Sieg was born and their mother temporarily regained her health. She presents the enchanted stone to Sieg, explaining she kept it all these years as a precious reminder of her determined struggles. Smiling warmly at the fluffy beast, Marie gently promises Haku that this artifact will finally cure her. Noticing Sieg hesitating to take the stone, Marie tilts her head in confusion. Sieg nervously stares at the ground, feeling terribly guilty about taking something so incredibly precious to his sister. Marie softly chuckles at his hesitation, playfully assuming her little brother must still secretly hate her. A moment of profound, unspoken understanding passes between the siblings as they gaze warmly at one another. Breaking the comfortable silence, Marie earnestly apologizes to Haku for treating her so poorly before. Tears welling up in her eyes, she deeply thanks the loyal beast for saving Sieg's life in the forest. Marie officially accepts Haku as a dear member of their family and humbly asks for a chance to help heal her. Haku happily accepts the apology with an affectionate headbutt, prompting a grateful Marie to prepare the magical stone. A brilliant, cross-shaped pillar of holy light erupts from the stone, completely bathing the awestruck tiger in purifying energy. The intense, sparkling light envelops the entire clearing as Marie nervously prays for a successful purification. Haku suddenly leaps into the air with a joyful roar, her body finally bursting with warm, unhindered energy. The uncle smiles brightly, officially confirming that the beast's magical flow has completely returned to normal. Sieg violently hugs his sister in sheer gratitude, while Haku cheerfully thanks Marie for saving her. Eager to test her restored powers, the uncle excitedly challenges Haku to try mimicking his ice-snow magic. The little tiger throws her head back and unleashes a powerful, echoing roar into the sky. A beautiful flurry of magical snow and ice leaves instantly blankets the area, completely transforming the yard into a glittering white forest. Overjoyed by her successful spell, Haku dramatically rolls around in the fresh snow while Sieg excitedly plans to build a snowman. Ignoring Marie's frantic warnings about catching a cold, Sieg enthusiastically shows Haku how to pack the snow into tight spheres. The uncle laughs heartily and dives into the snowdrifts, loudly declaring his intention to roll himself into a giant snowman. Watching the chaotic snowball fight unfold, Marie sighs affectionately and decides to postpone their formal magic lessons until tomorrow. Observing the joyful scene from high up in the snow-covered trees, a mysterious young girl giggles softly to herself. The hidden girl smiles warmly, whispering that she absolutely cannot wait to finally play with Sieg too. Razor-sharp ice projectiles violently slice through the air as the rigorous magic training officially commences. Beaming with absolute pride, Sieg enthusiastically praises Haku for perfectly executing an ice spell without accidentally melting it with her fire. The uncle claps loudly, thoroughly impressed by the young duo's incredible ability to smoothly adjust their magical firepower. Observing their flawless teamwork, the uncle notes that the fluffy beast is rapidly adapting to her newly restored abilities. Cheering triumphantly, the young boy joyfully declares that his loyal partner completely aced her daily magic assignment. Ending the productive session, the uncle instructs Sieg to practice his mana control while he leaves to have an important discussion with his brother. Relaxing comfortably inside the grand mansion, the uncle smirks playfully as he waits for his busy sibling to arrive. Leaning back with a warm cup of tea, he cheerfully welcomes his older brother into the quiet room. The exhausted father apologizes for the delay, casually brushing off the uncle's earlier magic lessons with the children. Sitting down in the lavish parlor, the uncle laughs brightly and reports that Sieg's recent progress has been absolutely astonishing. He eagerly brags that his young pupil possesses terrifying ambition, effortlessly turning highly complex magical theories into instant reality. Recalling a recent lesson, the uncle marvels at the boy's creative genius after watching him sculpt a highly detailed, bizarre tower out of pure ice. Realizing his dangerous curiosity went too far, the uncle quickly apologizes for jokingly wanting to dissect the boy's mind for research. The father sternly emphasizes that if Sieg can master his wild mana, the boy might finally be able to safely interact with the outside world. Taking a calm sip of his tea, the father acknowledges his youngest son's relentless dedication to his magical training. Shifting the topic, the uncle reveals his extensive research confirms Haku is an incredibly rare black cat variant wielding both lightning and ice magic. He marvels at how life around Sieg is endlessly fascinating, admitting he has never encountered a dual-attribute sacred beast before. The father's expression darkens as he deduces the lingering magic marks completely confirm Haku was a victim of illegal poaching. Staring at a map of the bordering territories, he suspects the corrupt imperial family is secretly orchestrating the violent capture of holy beasts for black market auctions. Smirking wickedly, the uncle reveals he deliberately removed the poacher's tracking spell from Haku and dumped it deep inside the perilous silent forest. He chuckles darkly, imagining the desperate, greedy smugglers mindlessly chasing a false signal into a deadly monster territory. Anticipating the incoming carnage, the uncle notes the false tracker was strategically placed in a highly dangerous zone. Smiling with absolute malice, the mage openly wonders what grisly fate will ultimately befall the foolish criminals. The father takes another sip of his tea, dryly noting his brother's mercilessly cruel methods remain completely unchanged. Moving to protect their newest family member, the father urgently orders a defensive amulet bearing the Abel crest to be forged for the little tiger. The uncle playfully teases his stoic brother for being surprisingly soft-hearted when it comes to defending his loved ones. Defending his sudden affection, the uncle passionately argues that Haku is an incredibly sweet, honest creature who perfectly fits into their family. Grinning broadly, he reminds his brother that protecting their own is simply the fair and expected thing to do. The stern father looks away, quietly refusing to openly admit his own deep affection for the fluffy beast. The uncle suddenly dumps a massive pile of letters on the desk, playfully presenting a stack of eager engagement proposals directed at their eldest brother. An overwhelmed Willibald sighs deeply, complaining that his status as the popular Red Noble is attracting a highly annoying amount of unwanted romantic attention. The uncle casually suggests dumping the persistent suitors on the Magic Guild, warning Willibald that ignoring them will only invite more chaos. Trapped by his own immense popularity, the exasperated older brother reluctantly accepts his bothersome fate. Meanwhile, a frustrated Sieg slumps over his desk in his bedroom, realizing his current magical control is severely lacking. Staring at a completely drained purification stone, the boy curses his inability to smoothly pour his immense mana into the murky vessel. He sighs heavily, noting that while the infusion process is theoretically simple, reigning in his explosive power is incredibly difficult. Desperately wishing he could easily forge his own glass stones, Sieg realizes he needs a proper medium to safely channel his advanced magic. Flashing back to a snowy afternoon, he remembers asking his older sister what happens when a magic stone completely runs out of power. A smiling Marie explains that a holy cleansing stone is simply a crafted glass vessel, infused with specialized magical sand. She cheerfully confirms that as long as the glass remains intact, Sieg can continuously recharge the stone to effortlessly cast advanced magic beyond his normal limits. Pointing at the elaborate glass stones, she explains that they are incredibly durable and won't break even when infused with advanced magic. Staring in awe at the glowing sample, Sieg wishes he could forge such high-quality stones to carry advanced magic, prompting the voice to offer him the artifact. His eyes sparkling with hope, the young boy realizes this artifact would finally allow him to safely wield advanced magic whenever dangerous enemies approach. He carefully visualizes the refinement process, knowing he must evenly pour a massive amount of magical power into the base magic sand to forge the stone. Channeling his intense focus, Sieg vows to handle the delicate forging process with extreme caution this time. A fierce whirlwind of raw magical energy rapidly coalesces between his outstretched palms as he shapes the volatile elements. Pushing his hands forcefully together, he desperately attempts to compress the chaotic, swirling magic into a solid, tangible form. The fragile creation suddenly, violently shatters into pieces, leaving a devastated Sieg to cry out in sheer frustration over the near success. Slumping dramatically over his desk, the frustrated boy loudly questions his own abilities while the little tiger watches in deep concern. Sifting through the possible reasons for his failure, he deduces that the base quality of his magic sand might be inherently flawed. Examining his supplied materials, he reasons that the sand provided by his uncle is only meant for basic control training and lacks the purity needed for advanced forging. His appraisal eyes confirm his suspicions, revealing that forging a true magic stone requires incredibly rare S+ grade sand instead of his current grade A supply. Completely baffled by the massive requirement, Sieg desperately wonders where on earth he could possibly obtain such legendary, high-grade magical sand. A mysterious voice suddenly interrupts his thoughts, playfully suggesting that the finest materials can be found hidden deep within the treacherous silent forest. His system interface dramatically lights up, explicitly recommending the legendary fairy forest as the ultimate destination for gathering S+ grade sand. Ignoring Sieg's panic protests, the mysterious entity enthusiastically promises to personally guide him through the fantastical, spirit-blessed landscape. Sweating profusely, the young boy vehemently rejects the absurdly dangerous proposal, arguing he is absolutely not ready for such a high-level adventure. A sudden, unnatural gust of wind violently sweeps through the room, completely startling the boy as he searches for the source. A cheerful, high-pitched voice triumphantly declares that it has finally found him. Sieg stares in absolute disbelief as a stunning, magical fairy materializes right out of thin air. The energetic fairy immediately tackles the bewildered boy into a massive hug, squealing with absolute delight that they finally get to meet. Squishing her face against his, she excitedly explains she flew over the exact second she was given permission to stop holding back. The uncle suddenly bursts into the room with a fierce glare, aggressively demanding the unknown intruder release his beloved nephew immediately. Noticing the white tiger, the fairy delightfully greets the holy beast with absolute joy. Utilizing advanced sound transmission magic, the fairy playfully interrogates the startled tiger about its true, hidden identity. Smiling mischievously, the fairy happily agrees to keep the beast's true nature an absolute secret from everyone in the household. Sieg internally panics over this stranger effortlessly piercing their covert magic, while the fairy delightfully revels in holding a secret over the uncle. The uncle sternly reprimands the floating entity, ordering her to stop causing unnecessary trouble for his exhausted nephew. Completely ignoring the scolding, the playful fairy cheerfully perches herself right on top of Sieg's head. She laughs brightly at the uncle's immense frustration, boldly admitting she absolutely loves making him mad. Sighing heavily, the uncle formally apologizes to Sieg for the massive headache his chaotic friend has caused. Gesturing to the floating girl, the uncle introduces her as Frau, officially confirming her identity as a true magical fairy. Still reeling from the shock, Sieg is even more astounded to learn this mythical creature is actually his uncle's contracted companion. Utilizing his appraisal eyes, the boy verifies her immense magical status and realizes she is the source of his uncle's incredible power. The uncle gently reassures his nephew, explaining that despite the tragic historical wars between their races, this particular fairy is completely friendly toward humans. Frau winks mischievously, playfully clarifying that she only acts friendly toward humans she finds personally interesting. Connecting the dots, Sieg finally understands that her overwhelming fairy magic is exactly how she effortlessly saw through Haku's disguise. The uncle notes that normal humans cannot actually see fairies in this state, asking Sieg to maintain absolute secrecy regarding her existence. Gazing at the floating girl, Sieg formally admits this is his very first time ever encountering a living fairy. Frau flashes a deeply smug, satisfied smile, utterly thrilled by the revelation that she is the first fairy to ever capture the young boy's attention. The cheerful fairy warmly declares that she will also protect the boy, since he is cherished by the same person she deeply cares for. Squishing Sieg's cheeks together, the playful fairy questions the stark difference between his inner maturity and outer childlike appearance while calling him incredibly funny. Ignoring her contracted partner's stern reprimands, the fairy stubbornly demands to examine the fascinating boy up close. Shifting his attention back to Sieg, the uncle notes the boy's troubled expression and asks if a personal issue is bothering him. Sieg briefly recalls the exhausting ordeal of being unexpectedly invited to walk around the busy town with several excited girls. The uncle sighs at the boy's romantic troubles, hoping the young ladies will soon realize their misunderstandings and leave the child alone. Bursting with sudden excitement, the fairy cheerfully offers to bestow a special gift upon the boy as a sign of their new friendship. Leaning in close with sparkling eyes, she triumphantly offers to give him the highly sought-after magic sand from the fairy forest. Sieg gasps in pure shock, completely astounded to learn that she left the precious material back at the Magic Corps headquarters. The uncle asks if the boy truly wants the fairy sand, warning that his overwhelmingly powerful magic might easily break the resulting vessel. Sieg confidently affirms his desire to forge high-quality glass stones, prompting the uncle to approve the endeavor as excellent control training. The experienced mage nods in approval, acknowledging that the boy's mana control accuracy has finally reached an acceptable passing grade. Tapping his chin in deep thought, the uncle admits his busy schedule makes it impossible to gather the required materials right away. Exhausted by his current research on a new teleportation stone, the uncle solemnly reveals he cannot leave his post or teach magic for an entire month. Reassuring his apologetic mentor, Sieg's eyes light up as he realizes the Magic Corps is the perfect environment for advanced magical studies. The uncle immediately shoots down Frau's eager offer to deliver the sand herself, while Sieg internally marvels at the vast magical knowledge waiting to be discovered. Picturing the chaotic scenario, the mage explains that a floating bottle of sand carried by an invisible fairy would severely panic any normal human. Glaring sternly at his contracted partner, the uncle firmly forbids her from acting alone to ensure her true identity remains safely hidden. The fairy pouts in mild disappointment, sadly admitting she only offered because she wanted to see the young boy smile. A sudden spark of inspiration hits Sieg as he firmly interrupts the conversation. Clutching his loyal tiger, the determined boy boldly volunteers to travel directly to the Magic Corps headquarters himself. The stunned uncle questions the boy's stubborn resolve to make the journey entirely alone. Driven by his insatiable thirst for knowledge, Sieg passionately argues that any aspiring wizard would be desperate to visit the prestigious facility. The uncle admits he would normally forbid a child from making the trip, while Frau excitedly cheers for the boy's upcoming adventure. Trusting in his nephew's immense power, the uncle finally yields and promises to personally guide him through the fascinating facility. Sieg cheers triumphantly in his mind, absolutely thrilled to finally escape the mansion's limited library and meet the kingdom's greatest wizards. While his family expresses lingering doubts about the solo trip, the loyal white tiger cheerfully insists on accompanying her master. A deeply concerned Marie warns that parading an incredibly rare sacred beast in front of obsessed magic researchers is a terrible idea. Smiling with a dark, knowing glint in her eyes, Marie accurately predicts the magic scholars will completely lose their minds over the rare creature. Realizing the immense danger, Sieg swiftly assigns a devastated and trembling Haku to guard the mansion instead of coming along. Bidding the young boy farewell, the uncle promises to make all the necessary preparations at the headquarters and urges him to travel safely. Despite knowing her brother will be safe inside the family carriage, Marie continues to fret over him making the long journey entirely alone. Staring deeply into his sister's anxious eyes, the boy solemnly swears he will return home safely this time without causing any trouble. Convinced by his earnest promise, Marie softly smiles and tells him to be careful while the tiger whimpers a sad goodbye. Stepping forward, an optimistic Theo confidently assures the anxious family that the brilliant boy will be perfectly fine on his own. The young nobleman flashes a bright, excited smile as he bids his family farewell and turns toward the waiting carriage. Brimming with eager anticipation for the magical journey ahead, Sieg cheerfully announces his departure to the world. A guard riding inside a grand carriage cheerfully notes that this is Prince Siegbert's very first time visiting the capital. Blushing slightly, Sieg thanks the guard, who accidentally blurts out classified information about his past missions with Lord Theobald. Staring out the carriage window, the young boy recalls that his uncle Willibald leads the elite 3rd Magic Corps, a secretive group renowned for their immense combat and research prowess. Eagerly pressing his face against the glass, Sieg asks if they are close, but the guard swiftly changes the subject to maintain protocol. The elegant horse-drawn carriage steadily rolls toward the gleaming, massive walls of the capital city. Peeking out from the back, Sieg's eyes widen in absolute awe as the majestic capital finally comes into view. He notes that while the official Magic Corps entrance sits on the west side, their highly secretive research facilities are hidden completely out of sight. Uninterested in the dark rumors of monster experiments, Sieg smiles brightly, caring only about finally reuniting with his beloved uncle. The nervous guard sternly reminds the boy to keep their previous conversation strictly confidential as the carriage arrives at its destination. Approaching the towering reception building, the escorting guards are utterly shocked to learn that attendants are strictly forbidden inside. A stoic female receptionist firmly blocks their path, declaring that rigid protocol demands Siegbert enter the facility entirely alone. The anxious maid fiercely protests the strict rule, arguing that it is incredibly dangerous to leave such a young boy completely unsupervised. Stepping forward, the male guard calms his panicked companion by asserting that the incredibly capable Siegbert will be perfectly fine on his own. Sieg smiles warmly and tells his caretakers to relax and enjoy the capital, ignoring the maid's frantic warnings about the perilous journey ahead. Reassured by the guard's promise of guaranteed safety, Sieg internally admits he feels slightly uneasy about trusting his mysterious new guide. Shaking off his nerves, the eager boy beams with excitement as his heart races at the prospect of finally exploring the legendary research facility. The stoic guide warns him to watch his step as Sieg nervously questions if they just entered a haunted cavern. Trembling in the pitch-black corridor, the terrified boy begs his silent guide not to leave him behind in the dark. Refusing to let fear completely paralyze him, Sieg grits his teeth and fiercely reminds himself that he chose to make this journey alone. Mustering his courage, he aggressively sprints deeper into the oppressive darkness of the stone tunnel. Startled by the guide's sudden warning, Sieg freezes in sheer terror as a heavy mechanism slowly begins to turn. Staring up at an incredibly massive, intricately carved door, the boy realizes the ominous atmosphere is growing even more suffocating. The guide casually unlocks a glowing, geometric magical seal, while Sieg nervously wonders what kind of terrifying facility lies hidden behind the heavy gates. A blinding pillar of light violently floods the dark corridor as the massive doors swing open, making Sieg cry out in pure shock. Stepping into the light, the awestruck boy gazes at a breathtaking research facility, completely intertwined with the sprawling roots of a gigantic tree. He marvels at the unbelievable scale of the ancient tree and the mysterious, waterfall-like liquid cascading from its massive branches. Before the guide can even explain the flowing liquid, an overly excited Sieg correctly guesses that it is magical tree sap. The stoic guide pauses for a moment before calmly confirming that his rapid-fire deduction is absolutely accurate. Thrilled by his discovery, Sieg eagerly explains he read that this special sap is the core ingredient for magical paints and advanced chemicals. Pointing up at the lush canopy, the curious boy enthusiastically asks if the massive plant itself is a rare magical species. The guide falls completely silent, prompting an embarrassed Sieg to quickly apologize for his sudden, overwhelming barrage of questions. Breaking her silence, the guide formally introduces the towering anomaly as the legendary Amrita tree. She casually drops a massive lore bombshell, explaining that the ancient Amrita tree produces mystical sap that actively fuels the entire facility and all its magical research. Eyes sparkling with sudden realization, Sieg deduces that the facility uses its own research waste as fertilizer to keep the vital tree perfectly healthy. The guide nods in approval as Sieg marvels at the beautiful, symbiotic coexistence between the ambitious magic researchers and nature. Smiling faintly, the guide agrees that his poetic observation is a perfectly accurate way to describe their deep relationship with the tree. The duo finally arrives at a grand, brightly lit entrance hall, lined with multiple colored doors bearing the magic core crest. Distracted by the elegant interior, Sieg barely registers the guide stating that the captain can be found behind the blue door. Without another word, the guide immediately turns around and descends the stairs, completely startling the young boy with her sudden departure. Sighing with a wry smile, Sieg accepts that he must face his uncle alone, secretly wishing he could have asked his quirky guide a few more questions. The stoic female guide casually tells him to take his time exploring if he is truly interested before quietly leaving. Staring back at the closed door, the boy optimistically wonders if her unfriendly demeanor simply masks a deep love for magical research. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a distinct creak from a nearby door, leaving him wondering who could possibly be waiting inside. Pushing the door open, Sieg beams with absolute joy as his smiling uncle warmly welcomes him to the mage core. Looking around the pristine hallway, the bewildered boy immediately asks his uncle where Frau the fairy went. Smiling warmly, the elite captain explains that since some core members can actually see spirits, he cleverly hid her in a safe spot. Laughing in perfect understanding, Sieg is relieved to hear that the fairy sends her regards and plans to reunite with them very soon. Walking through the advanced facility, the young boy gasps in absolute awe as he spots a massive, glowing crystalline artifact. The uncle proudly introduces the spectacular artifact as the newly developed teleportation stone, assuming his brilliant nephew might already know about it. He explains that unlike traditional stones that link to a single location, this revolutionary model can connect to multiple registered destinations. Detailing their ongoing experiments, the uncle notes the exhaustive process of testing and recalibrating the complex spell coordinates. Sieg marvels at the world-changing magic that might eliminate carriages entirely, prompting the uncle to agree that transportation is about to dramatically evolve. Eager to maximize his visit, the boy enthusiastically agrees to explore the magical tool section and the massive tree outside. Chuckling at his nephew's boundless energy, the uncle playfully tells him to take it easy as he prepares to lead the grand tour. A sudden, violent tremor violently interrupts their conversation, shocking both wizards as the room aggressively shakes. The massive teleportation stone violently spirals out of control, prompting a panicked uncle to demand answers while Sieg screams over the chaos. Desperately ordering an emergency shutdown, the uncle reaches out as the blinding magical energy violently erupts from the crystal. Caught in the overwhelming flash of chaotic light, the bewildered boy violently recoils and questions what the hell is happening. Slowly regaining consciousness, Sieg groggily opens his eyes while desperately trying to comprehend the sudden disaster. He finds himself slumped on the cold stone floor, entirely surrounded by massive, ancient, crumbling pillars. Peering into the dark, imposing ruins, the disoriented boy weakly asks where they are before his uncle confirms he is finally awake. The uncle breathes a heavy sigh of relief, explaining that the boy's body was simply shocked by the sudden, violent force transfer. Assuring his uncle that he feels perfectly fine, an anxious Sieg immediately questions their exact current location. Scanning their ominous surroundings, the elite mage grimly deduces that they have been forcefully transported into a perilous dungeon. Sieg gasps in sheer shock at the terrifying word, while his uncle confirms they have definitely landed in a lower-level section of a labyrinth. Stuttering in disbelief, the boy frantically questions how a stable magical composition could possibly warp them into a deadly dungeon. Looking slightly embarrassed, the elite captain admits he was just pondering that exact mystery since the true cause remains entirely unknown. Mapping out the error, the uncle deduces the chaotic stone completely missed its target and warped them into an unregistered dungeon zone. Crushing the boy's hope of an easy escape, the captain explains that dungeon restrictions completely block the use of emergency teleportation stones. A narrative explanation reveals that dungeons are mysterious, logic-defying structures scattered across the world that completely baffle modern researchers. To make matters worse, these dangerous labyrinths naturally seal away escape magic and terrifyingly absorb the bodies of anyone who dies inside. Despite the immense danger, the deepest depths of these dungeons reportedly house unimaginable, otherworldly treasures known as uparts. Sieg's eyes sparkle at the prospect of legendary loot, though his uncle quickly reminds him that such world-altering secrets come with massive risks. Inspecting some nearby debris, the captain notes lingering traces of past explorers, indicating the area has already been cleared of easy treasure. The anxious boy bitterly curses his relentless bad luck, overwhelmed by the absolute insanity of being accidentally warped into a lethal labyrinth. Staring up a massive flight of dark stairs, the uncle notes that simply walking back to the entrance is one possible escape route. Tapping his chin thoughtfully, the seasoned warrior mentions they could also escape by venturing deeper and annihilating the dungeon boss. Flashing a wicked grin, the captain boldly suggests that Sieg should try defeating the dungeon boss entirely by himself. Ignoring the boy's sheer panic, the uncle insists this life-or-death battle is the perfect opportunity to test his rigorous magical training. Sweating profusely, a terrified Sieg nervously questions if he is actually strong enough to survive a one-on-one fight against a monster boss. The captain casually reveals the boss is a terrifying B-rank entity known as the Red Sword King, causing Sieg to shriek in pure horror. Internally panicking, the boy recalls that a B-rank monster is just as deadly as the terrifying creature he previously fought alongside his brother. The confident uncle reassures the trembling boy of his immense skills, completely brushing off Sieg's frantic protest that this is insanely reckless. Flashing a smug, knowing smile, the captain playfully taunts the boy while Sieg stews in his deep, rising dread. The elite mage reasons that fighting the boss is actually faster than climbing out, promising to step in if the battle becomes genuinely fatal. A sudden, blood-curdling scream violently shatters the dungeon's silence, causing Sieg to jump in absolute terror. Ignoring his deep fears, the heroic boy immediately sprints toward the echoing voice, determined to investigate the desperate cry for help. The seasoned captain narrows his eyes in deep suspicion, wondering why a new presence suddenly materialized out of nowhere. Realizing the extreme urgency of the situation, the uncle commands Sieg to hurry as they sprint toward the hidden danger. Bursting into a dark chamber, they spot a helpless young girl with animal ears violently ensnared in a massive spider web. Sieg stares in absolute horror at the grim scene, while the captain grimly acknowledges the terrifying reality of the dungeon's cruelty. Two massive, heavily armored arachnid monsters aggressively guard their trapped prey, clicking their sharp mandibles in the dark web. Drawing his weapon, the confident captain crouches into a combat stance and asks his young nephew if he is finally ready. Staring down the terrifying beasts, the uncle declares it is time to show off their training as the brutal dungeon battle officially begins.